Husband's death reveals a secret he's kept for over 64 years. When your marriage lasts decades, they say you can communicate without even speaking. You know the small stuff, like how your spouse takes their tea, and could probably recite their morning routine down to their after-toothbrushing sighs. After a lifetime together, you'd think you'd know every secret swirling around in your partner's head. But do you really? One woman from Trowbridge, Wiltshire, laid her best friend to rest after spending her life by his side. It was only after packing up some dusty old paperwork that she stopped to read what her husband had written and discovered he'd been lying for the entirety of their marriage. His biggest secret left her second-guessing every moment she held dear. Audrey and her husband Glyn Glyn for short, had a marriage for the ages. In their 64 trips around the sun together, the couple shared everything from laughs to comfortable silences, and so much more in between. After decades of raising children and building their lives, they slid into their golden years hand in hand, through sickness and in health, is what they vowed to each other. And even Glyn's Parkinson's disease diagnosis couldn't shake their union. But their wedded bliss ended with Audrey at her husband's bedside in January of 2015, when Glyn passed away at age 83 from Parkinson's. With a heavy heart, Audrey started the exhaustive process of grieving her best friend. Once the rituals of death had passed and all the neighbors stopped bringing by spare casseroles to share a hot meal's worth of sympathies, Audrey was left alone in the house she shared with Glyn, filled with evidence of their marriage. One day, Audrey cleared out Glyn's old paperwork that she had no use for anymore. Before retirement, her husband was a civil engineer. She'd never involved herself in his work, but curiosity mixed with longing made her glance through the documents before they met the trash can. At first, skimming the page of words scrawled in Glyn's familiar handwriting brought Audrey a pang of comfort. As she read through the sentences, though, the context of her husband's writings made absolutely no sense for that of a civil engineer. Reading through page after page, Audrey said her stomach churned as she discovered the man she thought she'd known best of anyone in the world had concealed a staggering secret. Glyn wasn't only a civil engineer. As he detailed in his writings, when Glyn was 13, word somehow reached government officials that he possessed a photographic memory. Representatives from British intelligence approached the team for recruitment in 1944, presenting him with a choice. From the word go, Glyn was sucked into the sensitive world of classified operations. He wrote about an official he'd known simply as Captain, who ushered him through his first assignment, a project he named Operation XX, or Double Cross. Since he was still a minor, Glyn's father had to grant permission for his son to become an official covert agent. The captain met with his father, who consented, then kept and died with his son's secret. He was the only other person aware of his spy identity. As part of Operation Double Cross, Glyn and many others engaged in various counter-espionage measures against the Nazis. Whether that meant feeding false facts to captured Nazi soldiers or planting agents in with the enemy, British intelligence flooded the Germans with disinformation. Glyn specifically mentioned in his writings times when he crawled through the damp darkness of concrete pipes to infiltrate the walls of prisons. Then, once inside, he'd tell lies to German POWs before crawling out the way he came. Throughout the next several decades, when the captain came calling, Glyn would hang up his civil engineering hat and dive back into his work as a spy. Simultaneous to his espionage duties, Glyn met, fell in love with, and married Audrey. Finding out about her husband's secret life hurt and confused Audrey. She admitted, "I was completely oblivious. I have so many questions now that will never get answered. Why did I not know?" It led to reflection on Audrey's part to see if she could pinpoint moments where her husband's veneer had cracked. Glyn mostly worked from home while she went to her job as a home economics teacher. If he was sneaking off on covert missions, Audrey never noticed. In their happy marriage, Glynn and Audrey welcomed 2 children, yet no hints of his governmental duties leaked to any of his loved ones. He'd be off assisting in the capture of enemy spies and still make it home for a quiet dinner with the family. The toll that concealment had on their relationship wasn't lost on Glynn. He addressed it in his writings, saying specifically how his spy career impacted Audrey. I look back now and think about what sort of life she must have had and how she put up with me. Despite the whiplash the realization gave Audrey, she held on to the notion that Glynn wrote out his story so that one day his words would be read. Even if he hadn't specifically confided in her before passing, she'd found out the truth through his voice on the page. In 2019, Audrey published Glynn's writings as a book titled Operation XX and Me, Did I Have a Choice? She hoped others would enjoy stepping into the shoes of a real-life spy and to create a lasting legacy for the husband who had to stay silent. Glynn was one of many men and women who risked their lives in an entirely thankless position. Their triumphs only came to light after they had helped change the course of history, but that isn't exactly unfamiliar territory for those serving undercover. For instance, though most were never taught her name in AP history class, Christina Skarbek's impact on the world can't be understated. Without her courageous and anonymous efforts, the planet would be a very different place. Prior to the Nazi invasion and occupation of Poland in 1939, she was the daughter of a count. After that defining historical moment, though, everything changed. She became a spy. On 21st April 1930, Christina married a young businessman, Gustav Getlich, at the Spiritual Seminary Church in Warsaw, but they proved incompatible. By 1944, she was known as Winston Churchill's favorite spy. Not only that, but she was widely believed to be the inspiration behind Vesper Lynd, James Bond's love interest from Ian Fleming's first Bond novel, Casino Royale. So what was it about Christina Skarbek that was so amazing? Though her entire life is fascinating, it's what happened after she traveled to London in 1938 with her second husband that things got the most interesting. While in London, Poland was invaded, and Christina became determined to help the British in their war effort. Ultimately, she was persistent enough to be sent on her very first mission. Christina was to pose as a journalist based in Budapest. Then, she would cross Slovakia and ski over the Polish border to Zakopane. From there on out, she would regularly make trips back and forth from Hungary to Poland, gathering intelligence along the way. British intelligence, which had placed Christina in a covert group called Section D, used her to gain valuable information about train schedules, guard movements, and to spread propaganda. Eventually going by the name Christina Granville, while undercover, Christina was known for many daring escapes. Once she was able to escape interrogation by German soldiers by biting her tongue so hard it bled and telling the soldiers that she had tuberculosis. Another time, she escaped a German patrol despite being stopped by guards by revealing to them that she had 2 grenades under her arms. Still, her most daring accomplishment was something even better. Christina was able to rescue her chief, resistance leader Francis Kameritz, after he was imprisoned by the Gestapo. To pull this off, she started by singing the song Frankie and Johnny, a song they both knew, while walking around the prison until she heard him singing back. Once she had made contact with him, she was able to convince the guards that she was Francis's wife. Then, after they allowed her to meet with him, she managed to bend the truth enough that the guards actually let her leave, with Francis. Just like that, she sprung a resistance leader from German prison. In the end, she was Britain's first and longest-serving female special agent. Tragically, Christina was stabbed to death by Dennis Muldowney on the stairs of the Hotel Shelbourne in London on the 15th of June 1952, in reaction to her plans of leaving England for good. Christina's life could serve as an image of World War II's complexity and injustice. Even though she risked her life for Poland, Great Britain, and France, she found no shelter and reward for her outstanding service. Christine was a highly decorated agent. She was given many awards, including the OBE, Croix de Guerre, George Medal, and Polish Patriot Shield. In 2013, the book The Spy Who Loved: The Secrets and Lives of Christine Granville was released, and it will be made into a film. Recently, a bronze bust of her was also unveiled at the Polish Hearth Club in London. Bonus fact: Christine Granville is widely believed to be the inspiration for Vesper Lynd, played here by Ursula Andress opposite Peter Sellers' James Bond.